Week?
It just happens to be Shark Week.
Okay.
Yeah, it just
so,
happens to be Shark Week.
So the emphasis is on that. So have you been to Memphis before?
I have been to Memphis, but in a personal capacity, as in visiting the great city of Memphis, but haven't been visiting in a role like this to see the great work of our wildlife inspectors, to see what they're doing on the ground, seeing the facilities and how they're moving and checking the items, and then the partnership that we have with FedEx.
I think you've been on this position 8 months. So
since January, yeah.
So talk about being the director of this. Has it been what you expected to be, or you're in an election year and all these different kind of things? So talk about your role now.
So my role as director of the Fish and Wildlife Service, I mentioned what our mission is, and you know, we have 4 great programs within the Fish and Wildlife Service. And looking at our international side, looking at our law enforcement side, that is just one key piece of what we're doing. And so being in this role, it's serving the American public, and it happens in different capacities. So I'm excited to be here. President Trump nominated me twice. I serve under the leadership of Secretary Bernhardt. And so we talk about how do we provide those services to the American people. So they range from public access. We have 95 million land acres. How do we get people? How do we get people outdoors hunting, fishing? That's our American heritage. You look at our hatcheries, where we are producing fish, either for mitigation for projects that are going up by other agencies, or for meeting our agreements with our state agencies like TWRA. So there's, and then international affairs is just another side of that. So being in this role is truly an honor. Being here, seeing the great work and the passion that the Fish and Wildlife Service has to offer. So it's one of those jobs where you can never read a book to encapsulate everything that we do. And so it's getting out into the field and seeing that. And that's why it's an honor to be here. And it's amazing when you set your mind to it and what you want to do, that you can be trained in anything that you want to do and be anything that you want to be.
Do you ever dream that this is where you would be?
I will say I am so excited to be here. This is one of those dream jobs where I am honored that I was placed here by the president, and having that confidence in me just speaks volumes. So those are some of the things that you might not be able to plan out when you're doing your 20-year plan of where you're going to be.
But Memphis is a hot spot here. I mean, because of FedEx, with all of these different things like that. So your visit today was, I guess, a chance to meet people and to see the work that they've done. So talk about your visit today and how it went.
So this is.
Were you called to do this, or is this a voluntary trip? I mean.
So actually, it's part of a tour that I started about 6 weeks ago when President Trump said we're reopening America again. And so I got on the road and started opening places, either roads or parking lots that we might have had closed. But then that also gave me the opportunity to see what's going on in the field. How are we working with our partners? And so anytime that I'm able to get out and see what's happening is good for me, but then also it allows me to see other places. Like, this is not something that you would say is open or closed, but it's behind the scenes operations that facilitate what the Fish and Wildlife Service does, how we're able to serve the American public. I have visited a couple other airports. I've gone to Houston, I've also seen Boston, and there is nothing like what I've seen here at Memphis. So the work that our folks do here, I applaud them because it's their experience, their education, the capacity that they've put in allows them to make these distinctions. So there's activity everywhere throughout this country.
Yes.
And so we have strategically placed our wildlife inspectors to make sure that we are facilitating the good trade and then interdicting areas where there's illegal trade and making sure that bad stuff doesn't continue to happen.
This is the first time you've been in this room?
This is my first time in this room.
What do you think about all this? I mean, you look around at it.
You know, I'm proud of the work that the employees have done to be able to stop this. So this speaks volumes of them. It speaks volumes of the training. It shows what can be accomplished when we're working in partnership. It shows that, you know, every single day we are meeting the mandate that the President has laid out for us, what the Secretary has laid out for us, and I'm very proud of that. And hopefully, you know, the goal is to make sure, you know, as we start to trace things back, that stuff like this doesn't continue to happen.
You said you've been on the tour, Director, for 6 weeks?
Well, it started 6 weeks ago, so, you know, going to different states.
So are you going to continue this tour? Is this just one of your stops? There's a lot of this country. There's a lot of...
You better believe there's a lot to this country.
A lot of employees, too. This is a big business.
You know, it is. And the Fish and Wildlife Service is the oldest conservation agency there is. And so that's why I'm, you know, honored to be able to get out into the field to see what everyone's doing, because everything is unique. Everything's a little bit different. So tomorrow I'm headed out to Miami.
Okay.
And we're going to visit a port there and see what happens there as well. So this is just part of seeing our operations.
Thank you. Hey, we're out here at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Law Enforcement building that, unless you have a GPS, you can't find, but we're in the room with a lot of critters, so to speak, that were shipped illegally into FedEx. And we're privileged to have the Director of U.S. Fish and Wildlife, Aurelia, Skipwith, with us for Outdoors with Larry Ray, and glad to have you here. Talk about your experience of flying in and coming to Memphis and FedEx. It's such a big organization, and the job that your crew is doing here.
Yeah, so thank you very much. It is a pleasure to be on your show. It's great to be in Memphis, and you know, this is part of talking about what the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is doing. It's part of talking about what President Trump, Secretary Bernhardt are committed to. And it's about conservation. It's about conservation of our wildlife, and that happens in many different aspects. And being out here with our wildlife inspectors shows a different side. So we're always talking about hunting, fishing, recreating outdoors. But the other piece is that protection side.
Yes.
And so that happens when we're making sure that we are facilitating legal trade and that we are interdicting illegal trade. And so that was part of my visit out here to Memphis, to go out to the airport and see the partnership that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has with FedEx. And that is a wonderful partnership, to be able to work hand in hand, being able to make sure that those bad actors,
yes,
we're catching them. And the President in 2017 had an executive order to really reinforce our laws that are for, you know, wildlife trafficking. And that's about making sure that we are conserving and protecting those species that are either endangered or threatened. And so it's good to see firsthand.
The shark fins. You got shark fins. This is Shark Week.
This is Shark Week. And yeah, this is the shark fins.
There's the shark fins.
And as I was informed, these holes here are samples that were taken to be able to determine the species,
yes,
of that shark. And we have our National Forensics Laboratory that allows us to be able to detect and make those determinations. And one of the great things that I love to say is With my background as a biologist and also a lawyer, the decisions that we make here at the Fish and Wildlife Service are based on sound science, the rule of law, and a thing called common sense.
That's good, and you also got here during Elvis Week, so thank you for coming for that too. Just happened to be Shark Fin Week and Elvis Week. Thank you, Director, for being with us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right.
Thank you.